Benchmark, the voice of business. Presented by LMD.
On this edition of Benchmark, Vajira Kulatilaka, chairman of the Colombo Stock Exchange and CEO of NDB Capital Holdings, is in the hot seat today as we discuss Sri Lanka's stock market. Then, Hasta Premaratna, LMD columnist and market analyst, gives us his perspective on corporate earnings and investor sentiment. And we wind up the show with TNS Lanka's country manager Kiran Echen, who brings us up to date on TNS's latest nationwide survey. That's the lineup for Benchmark.
Welcome to the Big Picture Business Program, Benchmark. I'm Savitri Rodrigo. Today we welcome to our studio the chairman of the Colombo Stock Exchange, Vajira Kulatilaka, who is also the director and CEO of NDB Capital Holdings. Now, Vajira has almost 3 decades of experience in the financial sector and capital markets of Sri Lanka, and he took over the reins of the CSE in June this year. Vajira, given that you've been in that hot seat now for a few months, what are your perspectives? What are your observations of the CSE? An overview.
As you know, CSE or share trading of the country has more than 100 years history, and it has ups and downs. And after 2009, it started a new phase with the ending of war, and it went very high, 7,800 all share price index, and it went through a correction again. And some people lost faith on the whole thing because they lost some money. The CSE now is going through another consolidation and growth phase. I think this phase is different to what happened after the war, because it was more total break of energy. Some were over-optimistic. I think this time it is going through a more realistic phase of growth. So as CSE, we will have to do a lot of things because we neglected certain things. In 1992 or 3, when we started scriptless trading, we were the 8th in the world to do it. And we were ahead of London. We were ahead of Bombay. But for last 20, 25 years, we neglected things because of the war again. We didn't have capital. We didn't have income to do those things. But now things are changing. So we have to develop institutions, we have to develop systems, we have to develop risk management, back office operations, and we have to reach that leapfrog ourselves.
Now, the bourse has not been performing too badly in the last few months. In September, I think, saw a 3% rise, and average daily liquidity has now risen to 1.9 billion. Are you satisfied with this recent performance, and can it sustain that performance?
As a leader, I think that we have a lot to achieve. I get some satisfaction out of what is happening during the last 3 months. 3 months is a shorter period for capital market. We have to sustain this one. So to sustain this one, we have to get confidence. Sentiment has to improve. So that we have to do a lot. As I said, we have to take our Colombo stock market, securities market, to a different level. That process is now started and it's going on.
Do you believe that our regulatory environment is sufficient, given also the plans that you have for the future?
Regulatory environment is a dynamic process. You can do certain things, and even at this moment, somebody may be planning to do something different to break the regulations. So the regulatory framework cannot be satisfied and saying that it's enough. It's a dynamic process. We have to keep on upgrading, keep on improving. So that process is going on. Regulations at present stage cannot be done without technology, and that has to be brought in. So it's a continuous improvement process. But if you take emerging markets and frontier markets, we are ahead of others in regulations. But we can't be happy about it. We have to keep on improving ourselves, because somebody is always trying to be ahead of us and to break the regulations. So we have to keep on improving ourselves so that cover the loopholes, cover the some gaps, so that keep on improving ourselves, and that's a regulatory process. We can't be happy about one stage and say that's enough. We have to go on improving.
Yeah, it is actually an evolutionary process. Now, would you recommend a regulatory policy framework which actually reduces the current tax burden on both the consumers and the existing private sector? Do you think that would help?
Tax is not really a regulation related to capital market. Tax is something which is coming from budgetary constraints and more fiscal and macroeconomic aspects. Tax, yes, there's positive and negative, but if you take the SAARC region, I think our taxation is much lower than the others. We can also go on improving, but regulation related to capital market is something very different to really taxation. It is how to regulate the capital market activities. So that is what I was more talking about, and that we require more and more improvements.
Do you think, this is just moving into a little bit of a controversial area, do you think that insider trading is a major issue for the CSE at the moment?
Compared to other frontier and emerging markets, it's not a big issue. But again, insider trading is a very difficult thing to prove. It's a very difficult thing to control. If I tell you that my company is doing well, that's inside information. So it's a cultural, it's a regulatory, legal framework has to keep on improving. I have once, in front of everybody, a friend of mine asked me, when is this transaction taking place? He didn't mean to do inside trading on it, but that question is an inside information question. So it's a cultural change has to take place. The people has to be sensitive for inside information, so not to share it. So and from that point, it has to be legal framework has to be there to prosecute people. As you know, a very complicated case that came up regarding Sri Lankan is Rajaratnam case. So how far the American stock SECs went to prove that, it shows that how difficult it is to prove inside information cases. So it's better to prevent rather than prosecuting people, because inside information cases are very difficult to prove.
Vajira, one of the open secrets or what's whispered in the halls, hallowed halls of the CSE might be that stock market mafia. Are they here to stay? Are they alive and kicking? Or have they been thrown out?
Nowhere in the world, I think that type of mafia is thrown out totally, entirely. Everywhere that mafia is there, what we can do is to minimize them and control them. I think SEC and in particular has taken steps to do that one, warn them not to do these things. They are continuously doing, I know that, and so I think they are under control, I should say, and hope that we can go on controlling them, but they are not totally out.
And there is no legislature, there is no legislation, there is no...
Legislative power is to a certain extent we have, but as I said, some of the things are very difficult to prove in legislature. And there's a new SEC Act coming in, which will give them more civil powers also. We have criminal powers. Criminal cases are much more difficult to prove, but civil cases are not that difficult. So civil powers is something which SEC will get to prosecute, not prosecuting is not the right word, but to control these things.
We're going to break, as always, for our sponsors. When we return, Vajira discusses the debt market activity. He assesses that and also gives us his plans for the expansion of the bourse.
When we entered the industry in 1995, a new star was born as a fully owned subsidiary of People's Bank. For those seeking to grow their businesses, PLC provided the seed. We are not only Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company, but also the largest non-banking financial institution. Welcome to a new dawn for the nation. Introducing People's Leasing and Finance, PLC.
As soon as my salary goes into my H&B account, my family goes shopping just like a power play. Now with H&B mobile banking, wherever you are in the world, you can check your account balance and do your banking with ease. Wherever I am in the world, H&B is active on my mobile and tab 24 hours a day. H&B mobile banking. Bank anywhere from any mobile.
Welcome back to Benchmark. We are now continuing our discussion with the chairman of the Colombo Stock Exchange, Vajira Kulatilaka. Do you believe that Sri Lanka will be able to maintain inflation at these levels that we are currently, given that, not too long ago we were working with double-digit inflation?
That's a very positive thing. Aspect to the inflation is the world conditions. That is helping Sri Lanka to keep the inflation down. Major import and the major factor of inflation in this country is none other than oil. Oil is coming down now. World over it is coming down. So that will help. There are other commodities are coming down, except maybe little bit commodities that are affected by droughts in various parts of the world. Others are coming down. Steel is coming, iron is coming down. So those will help to keep the inflation at a lower level. On the other side, macroeconomic level, we would like to see certain indicators improving faster than what is happening now, but overall trends are the macroeconomic indicators are improving. So that also make us believe that these inflation rates can be lower. So overall, I think world conditions, some countries like Japan or even Europe now is worried about too low inflation. They are trying to push the inflation up. World conditions are that, so trends are coming down. So world will help us to keep the inflation down, and our indicators, macroeconomic indicators, are also that inflation will keep down.
So Vajira, how will you assess debt market activity?
Yeah, the government in 2013 budget gave a concession that all tax related to debt instruments, listed debt instruments, was eliminated. There's no withholding tax, there's no tax on the coupon, there's no capital gains tax. So whatever return you get from debt is made tax-free, listed debt. So that helped to take off the whole market. Last year, 2013, there was $520 million worth of debt were issued. So that was unprecedented in this market. This year, what is happening is that interest rates came down drastically, and there's a disbelief that whether these interest rates can be maintained. So there's some retarding has happened in the debt market, but I think it will pick up in the future when investors and issuers come to the reality that low interest rates regime is going to remain. On the other side, the inflation will also, low inflation will also make the interest rates lower. So overall, I think interest rates will be low and the debt market will take off.
Do you support further plans to expand the BOS despite some requests for delisting?
Delisting happened due to different reasons. Delisting happened because SEC brought in a rule that everybody has to give away 20% of float, which is a very good rule because no point having a listed companies with very low float. So some gave a plan that they will, by 2016, improve on their float. Some said, we cannot give that guarantee. There was some delisting, and that's the transition. I think delisting will be over very soon. It's more now it is the listing time. So therefore, I think BOS expansion is a right decision, and more listings will come to the market. There's a pipeline of listings to take place, and the market will have a lot of listings coming very soon.
And what's your overall vision for Sri Lanka's BOS?
As I said at the beginning, we were ahead of all the others, but during the last 20 years or so, because of the unsettled conditions of the country and the stock market didn't have, stock exchange didn't have enough money to go for expansions and investments. We are now behind the others. So we have to do a leapfrog. That leapfrog has to take place in different aspects. One is infrastructure has to improve, new products has to come in, risk management systems has to come in, and institutions has to be developed. And I think that's the vision for next 2-3 years, to do everything together, not one by one, because we have to do a leapfrog. So we will do system improvements. We will bring in things like counterparty guarantee schemes, CCP, which is essential for stock exchange. Delivery versus payment, that's again something which is happening in the world over, and we have to implement those. We will have to bring in new products, right, like derivatives, real estate, trust, exchange traded funds. So those are something we have to do very soon. And together with Colombo Stock Exchange and SEC, we will implement these things. And I think next 2-3 years, very exciting time for Colombo Stock Exchange.
Oh, for sure. And I hope your four-pronged vision works. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
So we've been chatting with the chairman of the stock exchange, Vajira Kulatilaka, about his plans for the bourse and what's been happening and what is going to happen, the activity that we anticipate. And a good follow-up to that will be our discussion to get an update on market activity with Hasitha Premaratna, market analyst and LMD columnist. And also, following that will be to give you an idea of what's happening on the LMD TNS survey, the country manager of TNS Lanka, Kiran HN.
Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company is now the nation's largest and highest rated finance company with 2 international ratings. Let us move the nation as one with People's Leasing and Finance PLC. Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company is now the nation's largest and highest rated finance company with 2 international ratings. Let us move the nation as one with People's Leasing and Finance PLC.
As soon as my salary goes into my HNB account, my family goes shopping just like a power play. Now with HNB mobile banking, wherever you are in the world, you can check your account balance and do your banking with ease. Wherever I am in the world, HNB is active on my mobile and tab 24 hours a day. HNB mobile banking. Bank anywhere from any mobile.
Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm Anushan Selvaraja. Let's take a closer look now at the latest on the bourse with market analyst and LMD columnist Hasitha Premaratna. Now, Hasitha, how does the low interest rate environment help corporate earnings?
Yes, so if you look at the direct impact, the companies which have fairly sizable amount of gearing, that is debt in their balance sheet, they will have obviously their finance costs being reduced because the interest rates are coming down. So it are already being reflected in most parts of those companies, particularly the ones that have been heavily geared. You will see the impact becoming even stronger. So that's on one side where directly the finance cost reduce and the profit improves. But apart from that, we've also seen in different sectors, particularly in the banking sector, where when the rates come down, at least when there is a rate volatility that is happening, the spread keeps somewhat widening, because generally you drop your deposit rates immediately, but then your lending rates don't come as fast as that. So as a result, you find that there is this interim period where you kind of maintain a higher margin. So banking sector profits in the short term can kind of go up, and thereafter it will sort of settle down for a while. Another important aspect of the low interest rates is that more from a medium term earnings point of view is that people should tend to borrow more and invest in projects, because the more projects will look more financially viable. So as a result, you may find this as an initiative to grow the profits and see more improvements in corporate earnings in the medium to long term.
What about this land bill, Hasita? How is this going to affect investor sentiment?
Yeah, so when you look at our whole investor structure, especially the foreign investor structure, which is going to get impacted by the land bill, we've been having over the last maybe 40-50 years different structures and different type of tax implications for foreigners when they invest in land. For instance, if you look at it from about 1969 until up to about 2002, there was 100% tax on land purchased by foreigners, and then 2002 that tax was taken out to zero, and then we had it reinstated around 2005, and then it continued till the recent times until this bill is actually in place, where the 100% tax was enacted back in 2005, and then the more recent bill, which is currently being debated, is going to kind of conclude that from any land, foreigners are not entitled to buy land post 2013, but they could only lease. And even if they lease, on the full lease value, there will be a 15% tax that they have to pay upfront. On a different note, if there's these investments, foreign investments are more sort of defined as special strategic investment projects defined by or not really defined specifically how it is, but then if they fall into that category, or if it is classified by the government as to what it is, then they will probably could buy land or own land. So there are two things here. One is that the policy has been moving up and down over the period of time and put this restriction. So on one side there is inconsistency that sets in and kind of ambiguity around it, and on the other side you also see that when this kind of acts are being brought in, particularly the lease part, you allow the lease and then you say I want a 15% upfront tax on the lease, when even for a 3-year lease, or whether it's a 50-year lease or a 100-year lease, still you have to pay that 15% upfront value on the lease term. So I think that's causing a little bit of concern among the foreign investors.
Now, Budget 2015 was read on Friday the 24th. Now, what exactly were investors or the board, what are investors looking for in Budget 2015?
I think the most important thing is consistency and fairness. So essentially, I think if you look at it from a 3-year view, we've seen the last 3 years Sri Lanka being governed by a low tax regime, which has been consistent for 3 years. So one of the most important thing is for that to be consistent across, because we've seen that the government revenue targets have been jeopardized because of this rate reduction to some extent. But then having said that, for the last couple of years, government has continued with that policy, that strategy, and ensured consistency. So I think it should be continued, and that consistency should be given to the investors, so that you get a lot of confidence that Sri Lanka does operate a consistent tax regime. The second thing, I think from a bigger picture point of view, the budget should focus on development like it has been happening in the last say few years, but on the other hand it has to also focus on certain fundamental requirements in economic growth. Like for example, if you look at the export development, which is something that has been very important, there has to be a more emphasis given through budget proposals, etc., so that the exports will grow. Because right now we have a trade deficit in hand, and we need to work towards minimizing that deficit, and there is a strategic plan articulated to reduce that over a period of time. But what we've seen is that the monetary and the fiscal policies around managing this has been somewhat inconsistent. So it's important to bring them together and make sure that the budget stays consistent with the monetary policy, because monetary policy has pushed significantly towards rate reductions, stable exchange rate, and also the inflation to be controlled. So budgetary proposals also should be aligned to those requirements and make sure that the development should be a development budget. We still have a long way to go in the development process, but it has to be also aligned into the bigger picture and make sure that there is a kind of a very good consistency between the monetary and the fiscal policies.
That was market analyst and LMD columnist Hasta Premratna. After a short commercial break, we will be back with the latest on the LMD TNS survey with the country manager of TNS Lanka, Kiran HN. Stay tuned.
When we entered the industry in 1995, a new star was born as a fully owned subsidiary of People's Bank. For those seeking to grow their businesses, PLC provided the seed. We are not only Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company, but also the largest non-banking financial institution. Welcome to a new dawn for the nation. Introducing People's Leasing and Finance, PLC.
As soon as my salary goes into my H&B account, my family goes shopping just like a power play. Now with H&B mobile banking, wherever you are in the world, you can check your account balance and do your banking with ease. Wherever I am in the world, H&B is active on my mobile and tab 24 hours a day. H&B mobile banking. Bank anywhere from any mobile.
Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm Anushan Selvaraja. We'll now take a closer look at the latest LMB TNS survey on Budget 2015, which was commissioned prior to the budget being read on the 24th of October. So, Kiran, what did respondents have to say about Budget 2015?
Without getting into specifics, Anushan, if you just step back a bit and take a look at the overall findings from the survey, there are broadly two themes that seem to emerge from the findings. One is a set of optimistic expectations and the mood being pretty buoyant around expectations from this budget of reforms and initiatives strengthening the economy further, about initiatives for the trade and SMEs, stronger measures on tax evasion, stuff like that. The other theme is a bit more skeptical, if not cynical, but definitely skeptical theme around when you ask people what they expect from the budget for themselves in terms of what is in it for me. Now, this is not surprising because even on across the board you see the macroeconomic indicators seem to indicate that the country is generally doing well, but it is not reflecting in consumer and business sentiments.
Do they believe that it would be beneficial in that taxes would go down?
People are not too optimistic about that, Anushan. Just over 25% of the respondents we met believe that taxes will come down, as compared to 56% of them who believe that tax hikes will be imminent. Even amongst this 25% so-called optimists, the reason why they believe taxes will go down is also interesting, because they believe government will announce some measures of tax reduction because elections are around the corner. But the only solace about this is that we asked the same question last year, prior to last year's budget, and close to 70% of them believed that tax hikes will be imminent, as compared to only 56% now. So some reduction in skepticism.
Did they believe that there would be some relief to the cost of living in Budget 2015?
No, majority of them feel there won't be any measures to curb cost of living. It's almost as if people have given up. Just around 23% of them feel feel that there might be some strong measures that might come down. Perhaps because of some of the recent announcements on electricity prices and fuel prices coming down, but the majority of them, close to 60% plus, feel that there is nothing that they can expect on cost of living.
That was the country manager of TNS Lanka, Kiran Echen. Thank you for watching Benchmark, and we hope to see you again next time.